And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Wednesday, April 23rd. Temperatures outside right around that 50-degree mark, and we're not going to move a whole lot. We've got quite a bit of cloud cover, but kind of like yesterday, clouds will give way to a little more sunshine as we head throughout the day. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Bridgette, how's your afternoon going so far?
So far, so good. It was a little bit sunny out earlier, but I see we've lost that now. Hopefully, we get an opportunity to recoup.
We will. Yeah, we'll see more sunshine as we head throughout the latter part of the day. We'll be in and out of the clouds. I think we're going to see more clouds in the far northern valley and less clouds further south you go. But as we head towards evening, in general, that's when we're going to see the clouds start to decrease a little bit. But temperatures today a little bit cooler than they were yesterday. As yesterday we topped out in the mid-60s, today mid-50s, and it's still breezy northwest winds at about 10 to 25, gusting even higher at times. And then those winds will go lighter tonight. We'll drop down into the mid-30s. And tomorrow, we'll start off with partly cloudy skies and then turn mostly cloudy. A storm passes to our south, bringing rain to our south. We'll be right on the northern end of that. And I think we'll see maybe a few scattered showers towards evening in the far southern valley, but don't look for much. Mid-50s tomorrow. Then sun returns for Friday and Saturday, and we'll warm things up. Low 60s on Friday, looking pretty good with lighter winds, but winds pick up on Saturday with highs in the mid-60s. And then as we head into Sunday, clouds will thicken up. We'll see showers and a few thunder showers develop by afternoon. We're getting some indications it may even hold off till evening. We'll wait and see how that'd be nice to get 2 nice days in over the weekend, and then a very good chance of some widespread showers and thunderstorms as we head into Sunday night and on into Monday, when many areas will pick up anywhere between about a half inch and an inch of rainfall. So good news for our farmers. After, a little bit of rain the other day, we'll see quite a bit more, at least widespread, as we head into Sunday night and Monday.
And folks are certainly in the field. I had messages this morning from some farmer friends up by East Grand Forks, Minnesota, showing soil temperatures of 38 degrees. That's a little chilly, but I do know that there's corn going in the ground. I talked to a producer in north central South Dakota. He figured his county had several thousand acres of corn already planted. So work is undergoing right now, you might say.
Now with the soil temperatures that chilly, Bridgette, I mean, is that a good I mean, I know there's different varieties of corn where you can plant when the temperature is a little cooler, but is that just kind of a one-off, you think?
Well, I'd like you to pretend you're a seed. Okay. Let's say you're a soybean seed, and we're going to put you in the ground and it's dry. You have no water, nothing to crack your outer hard shell to get you started. Right. So you're probably just going to sit there and be rather chilly. But at least it's dry, because if it was wet, now your outer shell would crack and you'd probably start to germinate and think, well, this is ridiculous, and shrivel up and dry out and rot and not be a viable seed. In the case of corn, much the same situation. Corn doesn't like cold, wet soils because there is actually something called cold water imbibing. Mm-hmm. And when corn gets that dose of cold moisture, it will affect its yield down the road. So it's a balancing act of how much could cold water imbibing bother me? Could I go ahead and plant anyway and hope to make up the difference with enough timely rainfall and good growing conditions throughout the season? So really, there's no science. Time out. There is science, but it mostly comes down to the decision that someone needs to make. I think above all, we got to remember that our best efforts should be looking for ideal conditions, and that is making sure that we're not too muddy, because we don't want to be mudding things in and creating sidewall compaction, particularly with corn. We don't want it to be sopping wet, because first of all, we're going to get stuck, and then we need more tow ropes to get everything fixed and going. And also, we got to make sure that temperatures should be warmer, because we like the idea of that seed going in the ground, getting moisture, popping up, and being vigorous growth, because if it has to sit and struggle, that's going to eventually take out some yield for us as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors that come into it.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Well, there's our ag.
There's a little bit of agronomy today.
Yeah, a little bit of knowledge for the day, I guess you can say.
Okay, so I've got a story, but first of all, I've got to ask: Hey, Addison, you're not like eating right now, right? Because if I want to make sure I don't wreck your lunch again. There's days where I totally destroy Addison's lunch at the time.
He's got his
You
mouth full.
okay?
Hold
You're good.
on.
I can
Hold
tell
on.
this.
I have plans to eat a lunch in a couple minutes, but I can put that off.
Hopefully, for all of you late lunch diners, this isn't terrible. But here's the thought. I actually have had the opportunity to tour a couple of dairies in the region, which I find fascinating. Dairy farmer's kid, I grew up on an operation that was certainly much smaller. At our maximum capacity, we probably had 100 dairy cows, where we see operations these days that can be from that size to significantly larger, right? Our dairy that we've interviewed in Alaska wasn't quite that large, but we've got some operations locally that are a significantly larger size. Here's something I did not know. So I get to the dairy, and folks it almost looks like a Zamboni, and they call it a suck truck, and it will get all of the liquid manure out of the alleyways, right? So there's solids, there's some straw mixed in there, that type of thing. That all gets picked up, and it gets taken to a pit where it gets dumped. And I am completely shortening this whole process and not using any of the technical terms. And my iPad saw me do a thumbs up, and it just gave me a special signal. So thank you, iPad. Um, then they dump this in the pit. It goes through a dryer, and then that liquid material is dried down and reused for bedding. So you can actually take manure solids and make them back into a bedding that can be used in the barn for the cows. The first thing that came to mind for me was bacteria. Cows have this is dried out manure, they're now using it for bedding. But the reality is, at the temperatures at which they're drying and the percentage of dry, so if you're shooting for 35% dry at the least to a 50% dry, I think this particular dairy was using actually a higher number, you're heating it to kill the bacteria. And so there would not be that concern for bacteria, because bacteria can lead to mastitis, higher somatic cell counts, that type of thing. So it was pretty neat. When you think about it, what a cycle that you keep taking those things back in, reusing, so you're not having to pile manure. You have less concerns with the lagoon. I thought it was kind of a neat deal. So, yes, if you were having lunch, I'm sorry, but there's my discussion about manure for today.
He hasn't started yet. I think he was waiting until that story was done.
My
I
ability
think
to
that's
tune you
probably
guys out is
best.
godly at this point.
I bet.
Let's not encourage listeners like that, shall we? We still want them listening to us. But yes, I know there's moments you just have to ignore what we're up to. So, also on hopefully the horizon today is we might be planting our wheat field, as I've talked about. I will be checking in with our farm cooperator after the show today. If that is indeed the case, well, we've got some sponsors who are here to help us power through our planting and get ready for our spring season. One of them is Red River Retention Authority, because who's helping to protect our communities from flooding? Red River Retention Authority. They work with local water districts not only in North Dakota but Minnesota, and they focus on water retention to reduce our peak flows by 20%. That's a pretty high percentage. And we will be talking with them here in the month of May about some of those projects, what they might be doing. It's the time that I get to sneak in as many damn jokes as I can, and I'm spelling that D-A-M. Now, also, one of our sponsors is Gowan USA. Gowan is going to help us with a wheat field this year, but because we are talking a lot about soybean planting, if we're not doing it, it's going to be coming really, really soon. I just want to highlight one of their products, and it's my favorite one to sell, and that is Sonalan. Because we've used Sonalan, its active ingredient name is ethylfluralin. We've used it in this region for years, whether it's in soybeans, dry beans, sunflowers. But here's the thing. It's an old product that still works. The only concern we have when it comes to resistance is green foxtail, and we see that green foxtail resistance primarily in our Canadian border counties. We can see it in other places, but that's primary. What does Sonalan control? Kochia, one of our number one nemesis in the weed science realm, is going to be kochia, particularly in North Dakota. But we don't have to worry about resistance when we're using Sonalan. We can also go after red root pigweed, lamb's quarter, and the foxtails, the yellow and green. When we use this product, it does require us to do some tillage, but that's not the end of the world, particularly where we're at in the Red River Valley, where we're already doing some tillage. So keep those products in mind as you are going to the field. If you have questions on those or anything else throughout the show today, you can reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. You can be watching and following along not only on Facebook and YouTube at WDAY Weather and Ag and Focus, but also on Here We Grow. Also on Acres TV, where we'll be featuring ourselves, including our Here We Grow project. Acres TV is a free app that you can subscribe to. It is through the Hefty Seed Company. In fact, yesterday, during some of the festivities surrounding U.S. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins' visit to North Dakota, I got to visit with Darren Hefty of the Hefty Seed Company for just a little bit. So we will continue with our guest today, and that guest is going to be Christina Traeger. She is with the Rolling Hills Cattle Company. They are a British white cattle company. They're a what? Yeah, that's what I said.
British
so
white
when we
cattle?
return from the markets, British white cattle, we're going to learn a lot more when we come back. Welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. And oh, you know what? Your technology on your farm is supposed to work smoothly. Who can help you make sure it does? That would be Chris Sherman over at Tech Support Farm. You're going to want to make sure to reach out to Chris. In fact, I had a conversation with him late yesterday, and he said right now is a fairly busy time of the year. He had a farmer call him and say, I think I got hacked. And Chris was able to resolve his concerns within 45 minutes. So, hey, that's a whole lot better than being panicked and sitting on long distance phone calls waiting for someone to try to help you who maybe isn't as good. But Chris Sherman is. And again, that's techsupportfarm.com. Guest today, I literally got this as a suggestion from a listener. And I had to say, oh, what? British White as a beef breed. And I knew nothing about it, which that's okay. I'm not that bright myself. So we brought our guest on, and that's Christina Traeger. So, Christina, how are you today? Oh, hang on. She's muted. We're going to try to get her audio there for a second. Let's see if we get her.
There we go.
Yay! That sounds awesome.
Doing great today.
How are you?
Great.
Okay. So, Rolling Hills Cattle Company. Tell us all about you.
I started out in 1996 looking for a breed of cattle back before the internet was a thing. And I was able to find an ad in the paper, and we went and visited a farm and walked out into this pasture, and there was like a few cows and some calves. And I looked back at the farmer and I said, are they going to run us over? And he's like, no, because they were coming right at us, and they stopped like a footstep away and wanted to be petted. So we made friends with these cows we had never seen before, and we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, we're not looking at any other breeds of cattle because these are really nice animals.
So, Christina, where are you located, and where did you drive to find these and realize this was the breed for you?
I actually live by Avon, between Albany and Avon, Minnesota, and the cattle we found were near Clarissa, Minnesota.
Okay. And so that you thought they were pretty docile, but tell us a little bit about the breed history. Where'd they come from? Because most of us think about Hereford, Angus, Charolais, Simmentals. British White isn't something that we think about very often.
There is 5 main British breeds. Angus, Hereford are 2 of those, and British White is also one of those 5 old breeds that was imported from the British area back in the day. The British Whites were imported before the World War I because when Hitler would invade an area, he would typically take their national treasures or wipe them out. So to protect the breed, Churchill sent 5 cows and a bull to a prison farm in Pennsylvania, and they were left there to protect the breed. And then after there was no issues with the invasion of England and with the herds that were there, they just left the cattle here, and by then they had multiplied some and were eventually sent to a place in Missouri. And then from there, the original fellows who started our breed association and repurified them got a hold of them and started working with them back in the 1970s.
That is interesting. Oh. Wow.
Okay, so what you're saying, these are like royalty. Like Churchill protected these cows.
Yes. They were owned exclusively by the English royalty up until the late 1800s.
Now, Christina, with these being a little more, are they becoming a little more, I guess you could say, unspecialized here in the U.S., or is it still, these are kind of a breed that not everybody is really familiar about?
They are an endangered breed. There isn't very many of them in England or anywhere else in the world, but they are gaining popularity because of their docile traits. As our cattlemen age, they get tired of getting run over by snarly cows. And they kind of get to the point where they'd rather have something that's a little bit easier to be around. And British Whites are something that they're distinct in color, they're attractive in the meat quality, and they're just really nice animals to work with. They didn't take off because they didn't have the marketing to back them like Angus did. And so here doing our thing, keeping them pure as best we can.
Now, Christina, are these? I'm guessing since this is a special breed, these are a little more expensive. Would that be safe?
Not a lot.
Really? Okay.
They'll be comparable to any other purebred cattle. There are areas of the country where you'll find them to be cheaper just because they're lesser known. They might be sold at the sale barn as longhorns or something, which polled cattle are definitely not longhorns.
No, no, they're not. Okay, so hold on though. I shouldn't laugh because I bet there's somebody out there who just said, what do you mean by polled, right? And so we should maybe define that before folks are having rather unusual thoughts of what a polled cow might mean. So could you explain polled in livestock for us, Christina?
Naturally polled animals are born without horns. So unlike your typical Holstein, Jersey, even a lot of the old breed Hereford, they are naturally horned breed that some of them have been selected to not have horns at all. And this breed is a polled only breed.
Okay. There's a ton more questions, and I really want to encourage those who haven't seen the British White before to send us your questions. Again, you can reach us on our phone line. That's the JLA insurance phone line of 701-293-9000. You can send us emails, weather or ag@flagfamily.com. When we return from the news, I have questions about calving needs, crossbreeding. Are these more of a muscular? What's their stature? And I bet many of you have those same questions as well. So get them all lined up, start typing them away to emails or dial away to call us. We would love to answer those with our guest, Christina Traeger. She is with Rolling Hills Cattle Company in Minnesota. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us today. Maybe you're in the planter yourself, making sure that the crop's going in the ground. Might be driving a tender truck today as you're hauling fertilizer to the field or out delivering seed, whatever that may be. We're glad you're here. Now, we are talking with Christina Traeger. She is with Rolling Hills Cattle Company in Minnesota. And I've had some listener questions come in for you, Christina. One of them is there anything as far as characteristics of the British White when it comes to beef quality and beef taste? As this particular listener who raises Angus mentioned, there's always a premium for black-hided cattle just based off of color, but doesn't really take into account meat quality, etc. So didn't know if or when they sell, the calves would have a discount or anything like that. So you want to address that?
Right. The coat color is one thing that is noted. British Whites are generally a white-haired animal with black eyes, ears, nose, and feet. They will have black skin, in either in spots or in totality on the animal, but the white hair will show through. But they can be every color from solid white to solid black, including reds, dilute red genes that will look kind of tan, but they're almost probably 70% will be white. As far as the marketability with the meat quality, they are by far on your top end when you're comparing them to the certified Angus beef. They are going to grade high enough quality to be certified. If they were to accept our white animals, they would qualify most of the time, like probably over 90%. As far as flavor goes, British Whites have the ancient true beef taste. So if you've ever had like Holstein beef or Jersey beef, it's got a rich flavor to it that's authentic. We recognize deer, venison, we recognize elk. The meat has a distinct flavor. British White has a flavor of beef. It's a rich, sweet meat that's really good.
Now, Christine, we had a listener also send in a question here asking about, is this meat available in any local stores, or is this sold directly through you? How would somebody be able to try this out?
I do sell directly from the farm. There isn't a lot of producers that have enough animals to have like a store offering, or like the certified Hereford or something like that. We haven't gotten that far as a breed. Our breeders is so small that we just haven't grown to the point where we can work on something like that.
Okay.
So for those who are watching on our live stream, you are able to see photos of Christina's herd. And we want to compliment you. You have an excellent camera for some photos that you've got here. These are some
Thank you.
Superstar beauties, you might say, that are looking really good. So as we roll through here, if there's any photos that you want to comment on any particular animal, you please just dive right into that. And we're going to continue to fire away some questions. What you mentioned earlier about coloration, black skin, white hair, distinctive black on the foot, the ear, the tail, the nose. But you also mentioned sometimes there's like a diluted red or even a tan. Is that due to crossbreeding with any other specific breeds that you might be doing that with? Or are you truly making sure that you stay as close to original, so to speak, as you can by keeping them that whiter color?
We try to keep them white. They naturally have a wild card gene that throws the red occasionally. There are breeders who are trying to breed specifically for the color red, but we have kind of not gone down that rabbit hole. I'm more concerned about the quality of the animal, the structure. The picture that's up right now, you can see that her hip bones are clearly level with her back end, or with her top line, and her pin bones are distinctly lower. That angle to the rump gives calving ease. When one of the questions you were saying that was coming up here was, calving ease. The reason that cattle are calving ease is because they have slope to their rump. That is extremely important. There should be about 14 degrees of slope from their hips to their pins, and that opens up that pelvis and makes it easier for that calf to jump out.
Looking at these animals, especially that first bull picture that we saw, they are extremely well muscled. Would that be also a consistent trait of the breed?
Some of the breeders have more dual purpose looking animals, so the bulls may not look as masculine as the Sundancer bull does. But there are breeders like myself who are very focused on the meat aspects of the breed and creating cattle that are very easygoing, easy keeping, and can produce a really great beef, because ultimately all the animals end up there someday.
Another listener question for you here, Christina. What's the rough frame size of your breed? Larger or more moderate?
The British Whites are mostly 46 to 54 inches tall, which makes them a frame 4 to 5. There are breeders who have smaller ones, and there are breeders who have larger ones. It tends to be a personal preference, but most British Whites, if you compare them to the ones in England and Australia, they're mostly going to be in that frame 4. You can see that black cow in the picture here. She's a marshmallow, but she is a purebred British White. She's got a couple of really sweet daughters that are just like the one that's next to her. This cow is as wide as she is tall.
Yeah, I saw her picture come
black.
up, and all I could think was, is she carrying twins? Because it's a real round shape on that cow.
No, she just had a single calf. She's just a marshmallow.
Okay. All right. Lucky for her.
Now, Christina, is there, could the average person, couple questions here, could the average person be able to tell the difference in taste in regards to the meat? And is the milk, is that better for people that may be lactose intolerant? Is there any difference?
The meat, you will be able to taste the difference between Angus and Hereford for sure. I have personally done other taste experiments with other breeds, and I'm very partial to the British White, not just because it's an acquired taste, but because it tastes that much better. So I guess I'm kind of spoiled and maybe a little partial, but I have tried other breeds of beef. Most of them just don't have the flavor. They're just kind of blah. You have to season them.
Sure.
To get them to taste like something. Our beef, you don't have to do that. You can do salt and you're good.
Wow.
Second part of your question, if you want to repeat that.
So let's say somebody is lactose intolerant. Would the milk,
right.
Would the milk from the cows with this breed be any different?
The difference between A1 and A2 milk is their question actually. A1 milk is going to be more commonly seen in Holsteins because it wasn't selected for heavily for a number of for decades. Your heritage breeds tend to have A2 milk, just like sheep, goats. Most of your beef breeds are going to have A2 milk without even having to test them. We haven't done a lot of testing yet, but the British Whites are known to have a lot more butter fat. So instead of having that 3 to 4% that like most dairy cows would have, they can have 10, 12, 14, 20% butter fat.
Now, when it comes to genetics, Christina, are you moving genetics around, like selling semen for AI, etc., or only selling bulls, that kind of thing?
Nope, we do sell semen, we do sell embryos. And we're kind of limited and very particular about what I put out there for genetics because I am trying to help improve cattle in general, not just specifically in our breed, but people who are crossbreeding, people who are, creating that milk cow cross, because the British White cross with a dairy is a really good cross.
Okay. So when you mentioned that earlier about herd size, how many head are in the U.S.? What's the size of your breed association?
The breed association has a couple thousand registered females, and then the bulls and stuff. So there isn't a lot of them, but there isn't a lot of them in the world either.
Okay. Nice. All right, this has been pretty cool. Oh, one more. Um, when it comes to shows, so for instance, you're in Minnesota. Are you showing like open class at Minnesota State Fair? You maybe just don't have a specific show just for the British whites. Tell us a little bit more about when you're showing them.
The British White Association, we've done a few shows. I've been to Arizona Nationals. I've showed at our breed association shows, but I'm not into raising show cattle because that's kind of a class of itself. I'm
Yeah,
more into
true.
the end of quality stock. I respect the people who are into showing cattle. It's something that is an art of itself. The animals are kind of segregated different in their goals. Uh, our goals are fertility, functional efficiency, and of course, quality meat. So there is some people who are into showing, and it's not at the scale that most people would find them. So you might find them in the other breeds class, and maybe at your county fair if there's a few kids in the area that would show them because they're great for little kids to show because they're so tame.
Right.
You can halter break anything without too much effort.
Okay, wait. You say you can halter break anything. Again, I grew up around Holsteins. I would like to say no, but that's just me.
I've been there, done
Christine?
that. I've halter broke Holsteins as a kid. I grew up in 4-H. I showed cattle and
Oh yeah.
Holsteins, and they can be a little interesting to show. If I wouldn't have known then what I know now about halter training, it's like 100 times easier now.
There's some really great tricks, and if you've learned them, boy, they are invaluable. So,
Right.
Christina, what you've shared with us today has truly been invaluable. This has been so much fun to learn more about this particular breed. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Where can folks find out more?
They can find more about the meat at grillandmeats.com. So there's no G, grillandmeats.com. And then they can find our cattle page at rhcccattle.com. And our breed association is britishwhite.org.
That's outstanding. Thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to do a recap of the weather. We're seeing a little more sunshine out there. We've got much warmer weather on the way for the weekend. We'll touch on that. And Bridgette's got a couple of ag topics to go over as well. All of that coming up right after the break. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:54 in the afternoon, and temperatures outside in the low 50s. Quite a bit of cloud cover. We've been in and out of the clouds most of the afternoon with more clouds than sun, and we'll continue that trend, although we'll start to see a few more breaks in the clouds as we head towards evening. Should be a dry day today, mid-50s, and then down into the 30s tonight. Tomorrow, a lot of clouds around as well. Maybe a few scattered showers towards evening in the far southern valley as a storm system passes to our south with 50s tomorrow. More sunshine for Friday and Saturday with temperatures in the 60s. And then clouds sticking up, and we'll see scattered showers developing on Sunday with highs around 70. Looks like a nice, still looks like a pretty decent widespread rain event as we head into Sunday night and into Monday. So that's good news. And then we'll briefly cool things down later next week, back into the 50s briefly behind that system as it pulls off to our north. So some pretty decent rain. Again, it still looks, Bridgette, like a half inch to an inch of widespread rain across much of the state into Minnesota and South Dakota. So good news. Good news for kind of ramping up some much-needed moisture around here.
Well, again, I want you to be careful what you wish for, because once we start to get too much, it's going to be a little tough to get a crop in the ground. So
Yeah.
we're going to see where that lands. And there are some fields that are on the verge of that. They would like it not to rain just so we could get that crop planted and move forward. And it wants to warm up. I don't want to see 38 degree soil temperatures for a long time.
Right.
Like
Well,
that to get a little warmer.
and the 60s and low 70s that we've got coming should help. And even though we'll briefly cool down for part of next week, I see a more general warming trend, which, I mean, we're turning the corner into May. That should be. But I'm seeing a more consistent spring-like 60s, even a few 70s in the forecast after the middle and end of next week. It looks like we start to see more consistent spring-like temperatures around here. So that's good news, too.
Well, for all you coffee drinkers out there, just a quick raising of the hands if you think you have a guess. How many millions of tons of spent coffee grounds are generated worldwide annually? Anyone? Millions of tons. How many?
Jeez. I don't know. I don't even know if I can think of a figure that high.
So, Addison, do you want to weigh in on this? I don't think you're a coffee drinker, but any
I've
idea how many tons?
No idea. 3.
Okay.
3 million
well,
tons?
Take it a little higher.
Yeah, I'd say 250.
60 million tons of spent coffee grounds happen annually.
I wasn't
and
that
not
far
all
off.
of them get used in gardens. No, not all get used in gardens. In fact, researchers are looking at taking those spent coffee grounds to recreate them into food packaging. I hope that my Twinkie doesn't smell like coffee now. But nonetheless, if you don't use these, it winds up in landfills, and that's a potential clog for the landfills, right? So we want to find other ways to use these things. Well, coffee grounds have a tightly bound lignin, which is a complex organic polymer in plants, and it makes that rigid, which would be ideal for packaging. So instead of using like cellophane, other plastic wraps, coffee grounds could potentially be reused as a food packaging down the road. One way to start reusing some of the things that we have instead of just sending them off to landfills. I think coffee grounds can maybe go in composting piles if you're using them in the garden, etc. I've used coffee grounds around certain plants just to add a little extra soil nutrient to them as well. They didn't love the caffeine. They were, the tomatoes didn't need to stand up quite that fast. They're fine. They were wide awake after
I'm
that.
sure they were.
So there we go. There's some packaging for you. And then also, if you are in Minnesota, and especially if you have a small grains field, University of Minnesota Extension Service is looking for you. They need some fields, particularly in the Crookston area, that they could do some scouting throughout the year. You would not have to do any of this. This would be University of Minnesota coming on out. They want to look for specific pests like cereal leaf beetles. They also might pull some soil samples because they want to check for disease. They want to be able to do this to build maps for integrated pest management throughout the season, and then also to be able to give that cautionary tale. Hey, we saw these cereal aphids emerging in this particular county. We anticipate they would move to this county, so start scouting, watching, and that gives us an opportunity to get ahead of pest and disease control for the growing season when we might need it. So that would be something, if you're interested in, you can drop me an email, ag@flagfamily.com, and I can help you get signed up with the University of Minnesota.
Good deal.
Right, we're done.
All right. That's going to do it for Bridgette. Myself, want to thank everybody for joining us. Don't go anywhere, though. The Jay Thomas Show, that's coming up next.